you that are joining us right now, you are watching News Report, and my name is SALIFYANJI, and I'm joined by the lovely Maureen.
Kasakula.
Great to have you on the show.
Great to have you too.
How's been your day?
It's been alright. How's been yours?
It's been quite busy. Yeah, but anyway, it's always a pleasure to be here and just try to really connect with the public out there.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you want to get in touch with us, you can send us a message on 0976-599-547, as well as a comment on our Facebook feed. That's our Facebook page, that is Live TV, as well as our YouTube channel, which is Live TV channel as well. So your feedback is very important to us, and so we will be, looking forward to hear what you have to say. And so before we get into the details of the stories, we will go into the leading stories for this evening.
All right. So the stories for today: government deploys police to enforce COVID-19 guidelines. Police officers who have received their retirement benefits should vacate police houses. Kampyongo.
And in international news, Russia coronavirus vaccine approved. And this is a statement by the president of Russia himself, that is Mr. Putin. And so we get into the details of the first story. And this is a story that, it's going around. It's a pandemic that has hit us. And it's, of course, to do with the coronavirus as well. So the Human Rights Commission has urged the Zambia police service to strictly adhere to their standard operating procedures during the enforcement of the public health regulations and presidential guidelines on COVID-19. The Commission has welcomed the resolution that was reached by the Cabinet on Monday, the 10th of August, to deploy police officers to enforce public health regulations and guidelines on COVID-19, as it is in line with Zambia's multi-sectoral response to the coronavirus called Zambia COVID-19 Preparedness and Response Program. So the Commission says that members of the public must know and respect the fact that during this period of public health, the global pandemic, law enforcement officers have legitimate powers to, among other measures, enforce restrictions on movements, public gatherings, prohibition of restrictions on trade or vending, and to stop any other illegal activities that may undermine fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. So this is a call from HRC to just, ensure that or remind the police service that in as much as they're enforcing the law, they need to actually not be so strict or be able to undermine people or be violent with the public as well. And so the Commission has also reiterated the fact that the COVID-19 pandemic is real and is ravaging lives. Therefore, there is need for reinforced response against its spread by combining public awareness and enforcement mechanisms in order to save lives. To this end, the Commission is calling upon the government to decentralize COVID-19 pandemic fund to district councils, district health offices, and police stations to scale up public awareness on this and adherences to public health regulations and guidelines. So we take a look at this clip and we'll come back to dissect this story.
The cabinet resolution to deploy police officers in the field to enforce adherence to public health regulations and guidelines on COVID-19 is welcome, because it's in line with the Zambia's COVID-19 preparedness and response program, which is a multi-sectoral approach to ensuring that the pandemic does not spread or is controlled. However, we appeal to law enforcement officers to adhere to the standard operation procedures. These are the procedures which were developed early this year, to be specific in June, to provide standardized procedure and practice to all officers during the enforcement of the public health regulations and guidelines. There should be no acts of human rights violations, because that is prohibited. We know that they've got powers to restrict public gatherings, unnecessary movement, to stop or to prevent, trade or vending, and also any other illegal activities that may undermine the fight against the coronavirus. However, our interest is that the rights of individuals must be respected, but also the rights of officers must be respected by the public. The officers will be empowered to take certain actions within the laws, but also that acts of torture are not allowed by any means.
So that is a Human Rights Commission spokesperson right there. So Maureen, I'm sure in the past you've noted or noticed how I think the police were a bit violent, especially when it comes to people that were patronizing, clubs and not adhering to the stipulated regulations and guidelines as well. What are your thoughts pertaining to the comments or statement from Human Resource Commission?
Okay, I feel they should. It was alright for them to come out the way they did. Yeah, they shouldn't take the law into their own hands. So I feel it's
right. Okay. So anyway, I'm sure even like the general public, I think, has taken to a point where they've so much eased on how maintaining the SI 21 and 22, where they're supposed to wash their hands, sanitize their hands, put on facial masks, and also maintain social distancing as well. Yeah. And so to this point, I think I do agree when it comes to like the way that police at some point came out a bit strong, and people started condemning to say no, the police are too strong on people. But look at how careless people now have become, where they're still patronizing clubs at night and are not maintaining that social distancing. And we've seen now that there's a huge increase in the cases of the coronavirus. I mean, how will we stop, further spread of the coronavirus if we do not adhere to the guidelines that have been set as well? Exactly. Okay, so now in the next story, also to continue on what the Human Resource had stated, I think this is where a government now is deploying, police officers to go around into public places.
All right. So in our other story, government will deploy law enforcement officers in public places to enforce public health measures on the coronavirus pandemic. Given a coronavirus pandemic update in Lusaka yesterday, Health Minister Chitalu Chilufya said the directive to deploy police officers came from President Edgar Lungu during the very morning's cabinet meeting. President Edgar Lungu addressed cabinet and took note of the COVID situation in the country and directed through cabinet immediate escalating in the response to stop the spread of COVID-19, Dr. Chilufya said. He said the measures will include the Ministry of Home Affairs deploying police and other security officers in public places to ensure the enforcement of COVID-19 public health measures and presidential directives. And further, the Minister of Local Government aggressively and non-compromisingly enforced adherence to public health measures and presidential directives, particularly in markets, trading places, and bus stops. Dr. Chilufya further said the operation of bars and nightclubs that has been seen to resume in some parts of Lusaka will frown upon the security agencies will be on board to ensure that these do not operate. Yeah.
Okay. So further to that, I think we do have a clip in which the Minister of Local Government had something to say.
And to ensure that we protect you, escalation in enforcement, strengthening of enforcement of measures through proactivity through the Minister of Home Affairs and the Minister of Local Government will be seen. We urge compliance. Measures are known. Implementation is key. This is the reason that His Excellency through Cabinet has directed enhanced enforcement. The cost of inaction is grave. If we don't act now, we'll see continued spread of COVID-19. If we don't act now, we'll continue seeing suffering of the people.
Surprisingly, the end of this video is, I find it quite funny.
I don't even know where people are running to. Everyone is everywhere.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, should we wait for things to actually get worse to do something about it? I know it's not a laughing matter, but these people are adults. Come on. Can be at a point where you're able to like control yourself. Know that, you know, it's not only your life that is at risk, but the other person as well. And that is one thing I think we keep on ignoring, you know. Okay, and one other thing that I've noticed, I think, from the particular video as well, pertaining to what the minister was saying, the minister of local government, you did mention to say that he said that aggressively and non-compromising, you know, the law in this case will be enforced because people are not adhering to the public health measures and the presidential directive as well. And he says particularly in markets, trading places, and bus stops. Now, if you do remember, like some time back, I think there was this exercise that was going on where traders and marketeers were trying to be removed from the streets as well. Now, how successful has that been? Because up to a certain, you know, point in town, especially when you go to Lima Tower there, you find all sorts of, you know, traders and marketeers in that place. There's no social distancing there. I don't know if there is anyone that is putting on a mask, but even if they do put on a mask, like, where are they washing their hands from? How are they maintaining, you know, some sanitation around them as well? What are your thoughts concerning that?
Okay, on that one, I don't think people are really putting in much effort, as you have already said about the social distancing, and the area is crowded. I think that's why he pointed out specifically to say markets as well as bus stops and you know, these trading places. I don't.
But you think like as Zambians would be able to reach that point where we completely follow through the guidelines?
I don't think it's possible.
Even with force, do you think it's going to happen?
No, because already people are saying, there are those that are saying Kulibe coronavirus, you know, it's not there. So if someone has that mentality, I don't think they were going to, you know, get it.
Exactly. And also, I think one interesting thing that I've noted from the updates that were given every day from the Ministry of Health is that we have a lot of BID cases where people are brought in dead, and once the testing is done, they find that they are positive for coronavirus. Where are these cases coming from? Because from what I hear is from the urban side, and people from obviously the lower, you know, setup, or you know, the compounds or these other areas, they're not really getting, you know, that much, you know, from them. Is it that people are scared of going to the hospital, or maybe there isn't just enough testing that is going on currently?
Okay, on that one, I don't know how I can, you know, but I feel like you have mentioned, it's possible people are really scared to be going to the health, you know, facilities and getting tested, as you said.
Right. Okay, so we're still talking about the coronavirus, and so at the same briefing where the escalation of enforcement was announced, the COVID-19 ex-patient recalled how he fainted for hours before being taken to Levi Mwanawasa isolation facility where he was being treated for the virus. So Robert Kolala testified that he experienced a fever 5 times and more severe than that of malaria while fighting for his life against COVID-19. When I particularly read at this story, I'm just thinking it's a good thing that people now are coming out in the open and actually sharing freely about their experiences, you know, pre-COVID or whilst they have COVID and post-COVID, the recovery as well. Maybe then people will get to understand that COVID-19 is so much closer to us than we actually think, and it's not a myth. Maybe only when you see someone next to you going through that would you be able to understand. And I'm glad that the people are not, you know, withholding their names anymore, but they're coming out in the open. And as much as there could be some kind of like stigma attached to it, I think the important thing is like being the voice or being the example to say, guys, I've been through it, and it is not even funny at all.
It's not a funny story.
No, it's not. You know. So I'm glad that, you know, we are receiving these testimonies from people. as well. So Kolala said he contracted the virus when he went for a funeral, and he said his condition worsened after because of self-medicating at home. And so there's that, misconception as well. There's that myth as well. And I remember one time someone was trying to buy some hydrochloroquine tablets because someone had announced to say, okay, hydrochloroquine could actually, cure COVID-19. So they decided to buy that, and although they did not self-medicate, but they said, in case I have, so I might try to just take it. And I think a lot of people really go through this. You feel like it's just a small flu. You go, you get your medicine over the counter, and you come back and you feel like everything is going to be okay, but then things just get worse. Yeah. And so during today's COVID-19 update, the Ministry of Health Director Infectious Diseases, Professor Lloyd Mulenga, urged COVID-19 survivors to report back to health facilities for 2 weeks to ensure that they are monitored, because most of them are presenting with lung complications. Here's a report.
To start with, ubulwele mwe bantu aleko bwaba, and it's real. Neolelanda pano, na defendelepo for 4 hours. My wife, Madam want kuchaba witness want. From there, okufuma palya, ero baishire ntwala nomba mu isolation. Umomo natampira okula kola nga ndekola peti mutemu. Mwe bantu ubulwele ko buli. Nale kola ichakwatinga nambo kola. Nale umwela wale perera. Anti banda senyeleti ero nale lalako. So my message is to the people mwe bali kunsoko. Mwila mwakwati ubulwele takuli. Especially mama markets. Ndachitanga nalolesha pa TV, I cry. Ndalila fesana. Nobody will understand unless walu aluvuvulwele. Elo mukachita understand. But ngatuambo kula taking ama politics muli uvuvulwele. I'm telling you, we won't go anywhere. Uvuvulwele eko vuli. Ngachako ya fiatama politics tuwalika aside. We can titu walusho uvuvulwele tuwapu. Nomba ngatutangisha ama politics uvuvulwele tabuwakapu.
So that was Robert Kolala testifying about his experience of COVID-19. Yeah, it's a good thing that people are recovering.
Yeah, it's really a good thing.
Yeah. Okay, so now to do with the current statistics of the COVID-19.
Okay, still on the COVID-19 video. A video has gone viral, purported to be of Chilanga area Member of Parliament Hon Maria Langa distributing of cooking oil on vulnerable people, and orphanages in the constituency as an economic response to COVID-19 pandemic in the area. In the other people are seen disregarding COVID-19 public health safety measures as a social distancing and not masking up. Let's look at this clip. Okay, so that is a clip from Chilanga
And as you read out that the Honorable Maria Langa was distributing cooking oil to the vulnerable and orphanages. And just to briefly comment about this particular video, that is like my huge comment right there, my huge sigh. But the first thing is, I don't see people social distancing. I don't see people putting on masks, especially unless those people that are putting on, that are distributing the cooking oil themselves. Yes. I mean, the Honorable should know better. The Minister of Health, even the President has said that, there need to be, stern enforcement, on the regulations that have been set. But people are not observing that. So how is someone like me, Simple Sally, supposed to follow the guidelines, that, the ministry is going to set? If I am not, or if the leader is not leading by example, I feel that this could have been done in a better way. Yeah. It's sad. When I first saw the video, I thought people were fetching water. That was before I actually read the story and got to find out what it was. And then I discovered it was cooking oil. So, okay, cooking oil without anything, like how is that stopping anyone from going hungry, in as much as it's a stimulus, package as well. And also, why wasn't it packaged in small containers and distributed evenly? Yes, there are people that may lie and say, oh, I did not get and come back again. But the truth of the matter is you would have already had your piece because you have distributed, what you need to do. And you can carry on with your life. So I don't know what your thoughts are on this video.
All right. Like you have said, no social distancing. Everyone was everywhere.
Yes.
There was no masking up. And yeah.
And it's the same thing, I think, almost the same thing that we saw when the commissioning of the bridge was happening along Kafua Road. There was no social distancing whatsoever. Yeah. So give us the current statistics for the COVID-19.
All right. So the current COVID-19 statistics. The cumulative number of COVID-19 cases in the country stands at 8,275, including 241 deaths and 7,004 recoveries. Ministry of Health COVID-19 update, August 2011.
Sure-ish. So in as much as we're seeing, more people recovering, the numbers are still going up and they're not, going down. Maybe we could record a few cases, but I still feel like the number keeps on increasing.
Yeah, it keeps on increasing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll go on a break and we'll come back with more stories after this.
Masenza bwanji wami. Chumyende sako na iwe. Pali pako ma 20 apolo ma 5 kwa jari.
Mama koino sasinjira kumuzonda
mazisi. Makoino songa chinjeko kubantu abale ndotopwana na 5 hours pamene pano leyo.
Kamba nayo.
That is why you need to get an e-token card, sir.
it is faster and easier.
To what? They told Nkatubalela is a National Road Fund agency card. So all you have to do is just credit it in Dalama and you'll be able to use it but to get Monga Panuso. To avoid the more inconveniences, so you have to start looking for 20 kwacha. So
introducing the electronic toll card. It's easier, faster, and secure. Access the e-toll cards from all toll gates across the country or the agency's head office in Lusaka at only 30 kwacha.
This message is brought to you by the National Road Fund Agency, a sustainable road fund.
Welcome back. You are still watching News Report. For you who has just joined us, thank you so much for joining us. If you're watching us on your top star decoder channel 112, as well as our Facebook feed, that is a live TV as well. For your calls, your comments, please send them to 0976 599 547 as well. And I know before, like when we went to the break, we were actually discussing, something to do with sensitization. We're still on the COVID-19 story.
Yes.
Do you think people have been sensitized enough? Like, what is it that the government is not doing? What is it that we are not doing also as, the local people?
Okay, on that one, I feel sensitization hasn't really been enough for the people. Because, okay, I'll look at it on the lower ground, people in the rural areas.
Yeah.
They do not have, not everyone has access to, the televisions and, the phones, as we call it, technology now.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I feel it would be better if maybe we use, the sensitization process through the radios. That one is, it's vibrant, it's vastful. I feel people, a lot of them are able to, get hold of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Through comedians. They're able to, send out messages.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I feel that way will help out in the sensitization process.
And
yes.
on that note, I think I read a comment from Michael Zulu, and he was talking about, musicians being quiet now. For me, I looked at it in a different angle. I feel that in as much as it's hard to actually earn a living now, maybe as a comedian or as an artist, I think you still have a role to play. You can still, like you have said, you can still take that leadership role and, just ask to be used. Like, how useful can you be during this pandemic? Okay, fine, you send me, I can go, and if I'm a comedian, going to, these areas where, people need to really be sensitized and look at ways in which we could actually ensure that people have the needful information to maintain, the regulations or the guidelines that have been set, for this pandemic. Yeah. And obviously, when it comes to like rural areas and villages, also maybe the chiefs and the indunas should also be well equipped. We shouldn't wait for one case to actually rise, from these areas to be able to do something about it. And so in our next story, this is to do with, houses or housing and the public service as well. So the Home Affairs Minister, Stephen Kampiong, has directed that retired police officers who have received their retirement benefits immediately vacate police houses. Mr. Kampiong says the police command and its permanent secretary, Masiye Banda, should work together to identify the retirees to pave way for the accommodation of officers that are not accommodated. He said this should be done expeditiously and should not be treated as a business as usual. So Mr. Kampiong regretted that some police officers are being forced to rent houses in residential areas when police quarters are being occupied by fully paid retired officers. The minister who recently commissioned 40 newly built police houses in Kafue district also announced that the government will embark on the rehabilitation of old police quarters to make them habitable. The Shuangandu lawmaker said as the government is constructing more police houses, the old ones will not be abandoned but rehabilitated to accommodate more officers. Mr. Kampiong also directed the Kafue District Council to ensure that police officers benefit from the 1,000 plots that have been advertised in order to empower them to construct houses as well. And this is not the only story I think we have shared to do with vacating, houses that belong to the government as well. I think it's the same thing that a comment was made to do with the teachers, retired teachers that are also living, in government houses and them having to vacate. I feel like there could be an alternative, to just having, as opposed to having people just vacate or move out. Maybe some of them have still been waiting for their terminal benefits, and that's why, they're still occupying the same houses. And maybe there should be like some kind of investment or insurance, that allows them to save something, save enough, so that when they retire, they just move into their own home as well. I do not know your thoughts pertaining to this one.
That's true, actually. They should do that, like you have said. There's more insurance, so that immediately they're done, they're able to go and live into their own homes and not have the same,
because people at the end of the day want to really be appreciated for what they've done. And it's unfortunate that if you do not own, if there's no property that, is in your name, it doesn't really give you that pride to actually, stay or point at anything that you haven't, built with your own two hands as well. And maybe instead of having to obviously push people away or discourage people, I think what the government can do is just sit down and try to find, better ways in which they could engage with the National Housing Authority or service, or the Zambia Building Society rather, and find a way in which, instead of getting loans for people to buy cars, there actually should be officers on the ground to ensure that the loans that they get and say we're going to build a house, they actually build the house. Yes. So there's also been a video that has been posted on social media of a man who is claiming to have been attacked and hacked by some alleged cadres for an unknown reason in Garden House area of Lusaka. So when contacted for clarification on the matter, police spokesperson Esther Katongo said she had not been given an update with full details on the alleged occurrence, but she received a tip-off from a member of public that there was confusion in the area, leading her to send Lusaka Division Police officers. We will take a look at this video, but we must warn our sensitive viewers that the content may be alarming or uncomfortable.
Vachongo makada zavo
nikutuko manje
kuroduku vari furu vamenya chevakaira simuona vaja vose munani kana vamenya chechimenye
vamenye wacha makada
zaya vari furu ndiye vanchita vamenya napanga
umenya napanga
napanga unangonze na cheni vamenya chimenye vantu vananga tenza ukonkana nacho kaupereka vintu kuja so ndio nimenya so.
Okay, so that is a video that's being or circulating on social media, where a man is claiming to have been attacked by some cadres. I just don't like. First of all, I've begun hating the name cadre because I feel that in as much as the term in itself, the definition of it is in a good way, I think it's reached a point where everything attached to it really sounds bad. And I feel like every time I hear the word cadre, it's just affiliated to politics, and I think politics have a limit, So that is a story, and obviously the police spokesperson says that they're investigating further into the matter. So we'll go on a break and we'll come back with more after this.
Masenza bwanji tuliendesa kona iwe pali pako ma 20
kuti apolo ma5 kwacha yali
Anga makoino sachinjira kumuzoni kama
zili. Makoino sochi songa chinjeko ku bantu abale ndo topwana 5 hours pamene pano leyo.
Kamba naye.
That is why you need to get an e-token, sir. It is faster and easier.
To what?
The e-tolling card is a National Road Fund agency card. So all you have to do is just credit it in Dalama and you'll be able to use it but to get Monga Panuso. To avoid the inconveniences, so you have to start looking for 20 so.
Introducing the electronic toll card. It's easier, faster, and secure. Access the e-toll cards from all toll gates across the country or the agency's head office in Lusaka at only 30 kwacha.
This message is brought to you by the National Road Fund Agency, a sustainable road fund.
Welcome back. You're still watching News Report with me, Sally, and Maureen. So we go into our next story, and this is to do with marriage interference.
All right. So Foreign Affairs Permanent Secretary Ronald Simwenga and Lusaka businessmen have entered into an agreement that the former be removed from the case where he is accused of committing adultery with his wife on account that he pays 100,000. This is on a case where businessman Lombe Okpara has sued his wife Musamba Mulenga, an investments officer, to the Lusaka High Court for dissolution of their 8-year marriage for allegedly engaging in adultery with Simwenga and former Central Province Deputy Permanent Secretary Patrick Mwanawasa. In this case, Okpara also cited Simwenga and Mwanawasa as first and second co-respondent. According to a content order filed in the Lusaka High Court, Simwenga and Okpara have agreed that the court orders that Simwenga pays 100,000 as full and final settlement of the matter and that he be struck out from the proceedings. The content order is, however, pleading authorization of Lusaka High Court Judge Nicola Sharp Piri, who is handling the case. Yeah.
This is quite an interesting story.
It's a touching story.
Okay, so from what I'm getting from it, this is a case of adultery, right?
Yes.
And there are 2 or 3 people, in fact, 4 people involved. So there is the wife, and there is the husband.
Or should we say ex-husband?
We're not sure if the marriage has been dissolved yet.
Okay.
Yes. So there's the wife, the husband, the first correspondent, which is Ronald Simwenga, and the second correspondent being Mwanawasa as well. And I don't know, like, is it okay to just like pay it off to shut you out of the case?
It sounds bad.
But is it, if you were in the shoes, would you be okay with just paying you off for any inconvenience that was caused? Because obviously there's a lot of, in as much as, that happened, we need to consider the emotional abuse, the emotional torture, and also the mental torture as well that, could have been on the husband in this case. And for him to have gone as far as the courts of law to actually dissolve his marriage on the grounds of adultery, I think it's a very serious matter. But can 100,000 kwacha make it all go away because someone does not want to be involved?
I don't think the money doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so from this particular adultery story, we'll get right into international news. So Russian President Vladimir Putin announced Tuesday that his country has become the first in the world to grant regulatory approval to a COVID-19 vaccine. Speaking at a meeting with his cabinet ministers on state television, Putin said the vaccine had passed all the needed checks and had been given to one of his daughters. The vaccine will soon be administered to Russia's health workers, he said. We monitored BBC for a report.
Major declaration from the Russians saying they'll start mass vaccination by October. President Putin even saying one of his daughters has already been given this vaccine that they're naming Sputnik. This is a nod, of course, to their first in the space race during the Cold War. But for many, it's still too early and potentially dangerous to declare victory in the hunt for a vaccine right now. Breaking news in the race for a COVID-19 vaccine. Russia just announcing they've approved the first vaccine in the world and will start administering it in days, despite heavy criticism it hasn't been properly tested.
We expect registration of the first COVID vaccine in the world. We believe it's a great step for humanity forward, and we believe it's a very important step for the whole world to fight COVID.
The vaccine said to be based on the same technology that helped them previously create an Ebola vaccine and will go to key workers like teachers and medics first. President Putin claiming it's passed all necessary testing, but many scientists inside and outside Russia very concerned over what they see as a hasty approach with just a small number of study volunteers. Russia essentially declaring victory before finishing its final stage 3 trials.
I think in the United States, we would demand a much bigger trial to be confident that the vaccine was safe in the sense that it didn't have an uncommon side effect and at least effective to some extent in the short term.
All this as Oxford, Moderna, Pfizer and others are moving forward with their phase 3 trials with at least 30,000 volunteers. US health experts optimistic. Speaking to ABC News, Dr. Anthony Fauci says he's hopeful that a vaccine will show to be effective in trials and authorized by the FDA within months, possibly as soon as the end of the year.
I believe there's quite a good chance that we will, and that should take probably by the end of this calendar year with vaccine available as we go into 2021.
Well, US Operation Warp Speed is putting billions of dollars behind vaccine makers so the companies can ramp up production and run clinical trials at the same time. US regulators are insistent that there'll be no corners cut when it comes to testing, making it safe to take. And for many, TJ, that is a key difference between what America is doing and what the Russians have just announced.
Okay, so that is a story courtesy of ABC News and is coming out of Russia. And I think from this particular story, the president of Russia was trying to create or make a strong statement, suggesting that he has come up with a vaccine. And by he, I'm saying Russia has come up with a vaccine for the coronavirus. And for him to actually test it on his daughter as well. Maybe I'm looking at it 2 ways. Maybe it's just to reassure people that it is safe to actually use the vaccine. Mm-hmm. And the second thing is I feel that maybe he's trying to tell his people to say, I have you covered, so I'm looking out for you. Mm-hmm. So by virtue of me looking for you, I'll test it or try it on my child, because it was reported that she actually, I think, had shown a few symptoms of COVID-19, yeah. And so he had to administer the vaccine on her as well. So I don't know, maybe we have to stay hopeful, considering that, like when you look at the African setup, or talk about the Zambian setup, I think everything that we do based around medicines, for the COVID-19 especially, we need approval from the WHO. And so once anything has come up and WHO has approved, and I'm sure whatever medication or vaccines now will be administered to any person found with the virus. And so on that note, we come to the end of today's episode of our news report. But before we go, we'll just go through the leading stories. Government deploys police officers to enforce COVID-19 guidelines. Police officers who have received their retirement benefits should vacate police houses, says Kampyongo. And international news?
The Russia coronavirus vaccine approved.
Okay.
Vladimir Putin says.
Yeah, so we are hopeful and looking, forward to what it's going to do. And so on that note, would like to say our goodbyes. This has been SALIFYANJI
and MAUREEN Kasakula
saying good night and God bless.